Oh my gosh! Attack me, he does! Poor Yoda. That's my dog Eeyore, and he's probably just as excited as I am to finally be wrapping up this project, right? Because when you guys joined me last Wednesday, well, this was just a toy gun it was a Ruby's toy gun, white and blatantly orange, and looked nothing like a Han Solo blaster like it does now. So the last time you guys watched me add cool battle markings to it, we went ahead and drilled holes out of the muzzle. The muzzle also had a strange covering, which of course doesn't make any sense if we want that blast to come out and pierce through the armor of those stormtroopers. And well, I might have gone a little overboard with some of this weathering, because we all know that stormtroopers can't hit us anyways when they fire. So it's not like we have to go too crazy with our battles. So we're almost done this gun, and the purpose of this is we have our very ever first episode of a new show called Nerd Dungeon, and you guessed it, it's all things geek. So it's gonna be home decor, it's gonna be prop making just like this, geek snacks as well, and also collectibles. So some of you like to collect movie props, sports memorabilia, and so we're gonna have experts on board to talk to us about all those amazing things. But the first episode is tomorrow at 2 p.m. live, and a lot of you guys have been asking me about the Gearhead Diva shows. When is the car stuff coming back? Well, that is next Tuesday. Every Tuesday is going to be Tech Tuesday, Motor Tuesday with Gearhead Diva at 2 p.m. So in order to get this blaster ready, I have one more side to do. So you can definitely see that, well, this is just looking plain black over here as opposed to our really nice and weathered side. So we are going to be recreating this very same look here. You can see I added some wood grain to the handle here, a couple cool scratch marks, a little bronzing going on for some of the pieces, a lot of weathering, and we're going to learn about all these techniques. This is pretty simple. I didn't bust out any airbrushes or anything for this. So it's a great first time project, and a lot of the notches and exaggerations of the piece that we did here actually turned out really, really nicely. And all the time that it took me to create these notches really paid off. So let's replicate this on the other side, and I'll show you guys kind of how I did it. So I'm going to start with just some silver, and that's kind of an easy place to start. You can see I got some smudges going on the gun right there. So perhaps I'll take care of those first, let them dry a little bit before I start the dry brushing action. So I'm just using some Testors mono paint. This is an enamel paint, and this kit was just kind of like a starter kit, and it comes with a variety of different colors. Not too many of them. I usually like kits that come with more colors, because with this you can always mix these to get other colors like the browns and the purples, but sometimes it's so much more convenient to have those colors already ready for you. Plus, when you mix colors, it's tough to get that exact same shade of purple or whatever color you're going for when you have to remix all the time. So I'm just gonna grab a paintbrush here, and what I'm doing is just kind of fixing up my boo-boos here. So we can see right here I definitely have some silver where it wasn't supposed to be. So I'm going to go ahead and take care of that. And right here too. Let's take care of that. And that looks pretty good to me. And now we're going to switch to our silver. And let's start weathering this thing up, making it look battle ready, even though you don't really have to be all that great, you know, against the stormtroopers and all. Kind of great target practice. So I'm just preparing some paint thinner here to clean our brushes. Put a little bit in here. Just a little dab will do. And this is one of my favorite brushes, hence why I only have one of them, which makes no sense. I should get like a grab bag of 50. That way, I don't have to keep cleaning. So you can see there, all nice and clean. And using this handy dandy special towel. No, it's regular towel. It's not Empire issued or Rebellion issued or anything. But I gotta get this gun ready if we are to join the Rebellion. So looking pretty good there. Give this a little mix. Now, some of you painters out there, oh no, she's taking paint right from the little bottle instead of putting it there. Just kind of keeps it a nice consistency. Now, rather than just dabbing it on, what I'm going to do is wipe the excess off on this towel here. And that'll allow us to just kind of put just a little bit of paint. So I like to choose all the raised edges, because if you think about it, it's really the raised edges that take on all the abuse, all the environmental elements. This is kind of where you hold on to the gun or grab the gun. And so I'm kind of following these, let me grab these guys out of the way, but I'm just following the natural contours of the gun. And if you have very tiny spots you need to get into, you can always use a Q-tip or a toothpick and accomplish the same thing. And you can see I let the edge of my brush just kind of bring the paint out as if we've scuffed the area. And all of my markings here that I made with a file is helping us out really, really well. And you can see we have our raised fins. Now this is an area of grabbing the gun that paint is gonna wear and chip off. So I'm going to go ahead and just get rid of some of this black by brushing right over top of it and trying to keep it pretty flat, just like that. And these are all pretty simple techniques, and I know a lot of you guys love to build model planes, model cars. I in fact have a 1970 AAR CUDA model ready to be built upstairs, so I think that would be a fun live stream. And I definitely like to add weathering elements, especially if you're building an old warplane, like a World War II plane. It's kind of nice to add all those bright colors, but then to weather it down as if it's seen some action. Make it look all authentic. So that's what we're doing here. And now I'm going to use this probably as a wall prop, something kind of cool to put up on my wall. Some of you guys like to go to conventions. And so this is a cool piece, or even a Halloween costume that's taken me less than 2 days to put together. It's been really fun. It's an activity that you guys can do together as a family and have a little bit of fun. Should have actually rocked my Princess Leia buns, but maybe I'll reserve that for tomorrow. So we have all this just about done, and you can see what a huge difference it makes. So that's already looking good, and I'm going to hit up a couple of these raised area, obviously where the trigger is. So just a little bit of weathering, and I try and make this go as far as I possibly can, but you can quickly see that in no time at all I've gotten some nice weathering elements going on here. Turn this so you guys can see it, and you will get to see this in all of its glory, of course, tomorrow on our live stream. And the nice thing with tomorrow is that right now this is like a fun hangout. You may not be able to stick around for the whole thing, although if you do, this is the part where you get to see all the precious fails, like you saw on last Wednesday. And of course we cover some of that with our live stream clip show, but you don't get to see it all go down in real time where we go, oh my gosh, I can't believe that happened. You know how it is, tools slip all the time. And a lot of the shows we watch never seem to acknowledge that. Everything works out perfectly. Parts always fit on the first time. Never have to make any brackets or move things around. You know what I'm talking about, you car people. So that's looking pretty good right there. I'm going to just hit up the trigger and maybe make that look super weathered. because Han Solo, he is a busy man. He is a bounty or a scoundrel collecting money, doing jobs. So, although he may not have seen so much Empire action, at least in the beginning, he is definitely seen bounty hunter action. So that's looking pretty good there. And because my brush is so dry at this point, it's barely putting color on, I noticed that on this side, the gun is extremely shiny. And on this side, it's a lot more matte. And this actually happened when I was giving it its black base coat. Now, I love to use just a universal primer and color in one, but it was about to rain, and I think the humidity just changed while this was drying, and it was kind of funky. We got one side that was matte, that was painted earlier in the day, and that is my rebellion dog Eeyore hitting the table, and the other side dried shiny as the humidity went up. So it kind of gave us two different finishes, but we're going to try and make the two of them look as similar as we can. So, and here's another raised area, and you can see when the brush gets so dry, you can actually put very faint light streaks, making the gun look a little bit more realistic. So it's not so pitch black. But I've also seen the different movie props by, just checking out some pictures online. And what I notice is that in each movie, this thing looks different. And sometimes it looks different from scene to scene, and all of the promos look different. Han Solo's holding an entirely different gun. Sometimes the scope is very short, and then other times he's holding a gun with a very long scope. But in both cases, the scope is never attached to the gun the way it is in this Ruby's version. And so rather than trying to Dremel all this out and having to recreate the scope, I figured for this first fun project, we keep things simple. And this toy gun has such great elements. Usually the toy guns are very basic and simplistic in shape. Also, they tend to be a lot smaller, for child's hands. But this one is actually a little bit of an exception. It's great for adult hands, and one of the viewers last time had a great suggestion. He said, you know what? It kind of, when you hold it, it moves like a plastic gun. It doesn't have the weight of a real gun. And that is my other dog who's testing, and then this dog just ran out as well. Again, behind the scenes, folks, this is the stuff that you don't get to see. We're trying to prepare for upcoming episodes, and look at what we go through here. So I'm getting this bracket all done, and one of the things I don't like is that clearly this is a bracket holding the scope, and then you got this like black support piece, which clearly would be nothing there, and this wouldn't be here, and this wouldn't be here either. So I want to try and leave them completely black, so that way they fade into the background and we don't notice them as much. A little bit more of this bracket, and you can start seeing, the weathering coming together, and you can see I kind of oopsed a little there, a little too much weathering, but you know what? Now we're gonna go with it. And it's nice that it happened on the leading edge towards the front of our blaster here, because if you think about it, that's where all the debris and all the fighting is happening on the business end here. So getting this all nicely painted up, and you can see I put a couple scratch marks on this bracket. Maybe it's about time for Han here to change it up. But another really great way of creating paint chip effects is to actually prime your gun, but paint the base coat a silver rather than black like I did. And then what you do is using something like mustard, something as simple as that, or ketchup, put it on the edges, just dab it where you want those paint chips to be. Then you coat the entire gun again in black. And what will happen is once that paint dries, you can wipe away your mustard, and beneath it will be your silver. And it'll look like it just chipped away. It's a great effect that sometimes it's hard to paint, and it's a quick, easy way to do it. If you don't want to go through all this dry brushing that we were going through now, you can leave the base of the gun black and just use that mustard technique to give it a couple paint chips and you're ready to go. Because the movie prop is actually a lot simpler. It doesn't look as weathered as I'm making it here. It's pretty straight on black, straight on silver, and a broom handle, which was a classic of those Mousers, which we'll learn more about in tomorrow's stream. So I won't give it all away today. Today is about getting this thing done for the stream, so that way we don't have an incomplete gun. Now, brackets are usually more silver color, painted black a lot of times, of course, for rust protection. But I'm going to go ahead and make this a little bit more silver. Just add a little more silver now that the brush is just about dry to make it look more like a bracket. And I would imagine that's the thing that's going to wear down first, is that black on the bracket. So that's looking pretty good there. And you can see from here up, the gun is actually transforming into something a little more believable. Now we gotta fix this top end right here. It's looking a little too shiny. And this isn't a new gun. This is a gun that has seen some serious battle and some serious swindling. Hence his whole Boba Fett issue. All right, so a couple other raised edges here, and then we'll move on to some fun stuff like putting some burn marks on our muzzle there, because obviously blaster, I have to imagine that it's really, really hot when it comes out. So it's gonna burn the edge of our muzzle there. So we're gonna create that effect. And basically the idea is to take, you know, you don't have to do every single raised edge. It's a personal touch thing, and with me, I really love things that are just old. They show character, kind of tells a story of where they've been. You might want to make your gun more new looking. So it's all up to you. And I'm just going to get in here, add a little color. And that's about done with that. And the scope I like to treat a little bit differently. Now, if you recall, this indentation here wasn't here. I actually created this with a file. And at the end of the day, remember, the line didn't turn out straight at all. I mean, it went crooked. I tried to fix it, and it kind of looked like I was just making things a lot worse. But when we painted on this side, look at how a little paint fixes a lot of stuff. And if you ever make a mistake, like, whoops, I put on the wrong color, or I put on too much of the silver, just paint it black. I learned it from the Rolling Stones. You know, especially you're supposed to do this with red doors, but I found that it actually applies to other things in life. Make a mistake, just paint it black. Start over again. So that is my secret to you all. And by quickly dragging my brush back towards me, you can start seeing it makes like a brushed silver type of effect there. So close up for you guys over here. And we're going to bring that down the barrel. And the next place that would get worn is this little ridge right here. Awesome. And because this is a rounded area, it kind of protrudes out, I think that the black paint here is going to be a little more worn than, say, down here where it's more protected. So now that my brush is super dry, and I'm going to kind of try it out here to be sure, yep, I'm just going to start brushing. Now, you may barely even notice what's going on, but little by little, you start seeing the weathering effect that this has. And now this is a little more silvered out, so you can see what's going on there. Just a little bit of weathering, which makes a huge difference from what you see here. And I'm going to do the same thing. We have a barrel here, we have a barrel shape here, and just take this outer portion and trying to make every little bit of paint stretch, because I find that when the paint is just about ready to kick, that's where you get the best effects from it. And adding again, I want to leave this area black to make it fade away. And by doing this, I am going to accidentally get some silver on there, but that's okay. I'll let this dry and I'll come back in and, as the Rolling Stones said it, paint it black and make it go away. So that side is looking pretty good. And so is here, leaving this black as well. I want that to go away. And the next thing I'm going to do is, I thought it would be kind of cool to add another dimension to this, like painting these two knobs here a bronze color. As you can see on this side, I made these clamps here that clamp the scope down more of a bronzy color. I think it added more of a steampunk look. Here we have some bronze accents as well, and I mixed up a little bit of brown to make it look a little weathered, maybe a little patina action going on. So let's see if we can grab some brown and get that going first before we add our nice gold effects. So with my handy dandy plate, now normally to mix up a brown, I like to do orange and blue. And again, because this kit is kind of lacking in color selection, I have the blue, but I don't have the orange. But what makes orange is yellow and red. So a little yellow and red will make that orange. So let's see if we can get the right shade of brown going. Shake, shake, shake. Shake your booty. We have a whole bunch of musical inspirations for this build, none of which are related to Star Wars. Right. So I'm going to dab a little blue on here. I don't think we'll need very much because we are going to be dry brushing. So I don't know, even though dry brushing you use so little paint, you actually use a lot because you dab most of it off. It's kind of a waste, but it's worth it for the effect. All right, so this will make our green there. And I like to start like this, and then we can kind of move up or move down in the brownness of the color. And a little bit of red to this, and voila. I'm going to use a larger brush to mix this one. And that is turning out pretty ugly. Yeah. It's kind of a very, very dark brown effect. So let's add a little yellow to that. Let's brighten up this brown. As Bob Ross would say, let's make a happy little brown, because we're going to be painting happy little patinas all over Han Solo's gun. Happy patinas. And just a little more yellow to make this patina a tiny bit happier. A little sunshine, if you will, to our brown here. And look how happy it is. And I just want to make sure that it's a color that's gonna show up. It's kind of like a gray brown, if you will, with a green tinge, but that's gonna work for us. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of the excess and dump this in our little thinner there. Now let's see if this is going to work out. So never know with these things. Sometimes you put it on and you're like, oh no, it's got to go away. It's like a cool pair of jeans that you see at the mall and you see it on the mannequin and it looks so good. You're like, yep, I'm gonna rock those. And then you get into the fitting room and, oh no, take it off, burn it. Don't ever look at it again, and don't let anyone suffer what you have just suffered in the dressing room. So I'm gonna go ahead and do the same thing, just kind of get rid of a whole heck of a lot of it. In the areas where I wanna use bronze, I'm gonna go ahead and just feather a little bit of this color. And what I like that's happening is that we're losing some of that sheen too. Ugh, that sheen from all the humidity trying to paint this thing or get it base coated. Base coated, is that a word? Oh, it is now, because I say so. All right, maybe add a little bit of it up here. And now we are ready for a bronze. So let's get that ready. Bronze, the bronze. All right, so I know some of you have already seen the Han Solo movie, so no spoilers, shh, because I hate to admit I am behind the ball on that. I usually see things pretty much the weekend that it comes out, but I just haven't gotten around to it with my travel schedule and all that. But we'll do the next best thing, and hopefully I get to see it this weekend. Take a break from all this. Get me some of my Star Wars on. All right, so this is just plain old gold that you can see here. Same deal. We're just gonna keep dry brushing away, wasting our poor little gold here. And let's start kind of patinaing this bracket here. A little bit of gold, going a little heavy on it, because I'm going to pretend that this bracket here is actually made from a different metal, giving us kind of different wear, and it just gives it a entirely different dimension. So these were originally flat, if you recall, and I went ahead and drilled them out because I'm going to put little screws like from the electrical socket coverings, you know, those little machine screws, and I'm going to put one in each one, and I thought it would help give it more of a realistic feel, because they were just kind of sitting there looking bored, basically, with no real reason to be, other than I imagine it's something where you can slide the scope back and forward, so we kind of make it, you know, make it look like it actually does that. So you can see now that it almost achieves kind of like a bluish hue effect. And we're going to go ahead and finish this little dial and have that done. But you can already see from when we started, it makes a huge difference. The two sides now are matching up, and on social media I'll post some very close-up pictures, because I know sometimes with the light and the way it hits, sometimes it's difficult to see all the details, so that way we can put pictures up that are nice and big and you can see everything that we've worked on and mimic a lot of it, or not, you know. You might look at it and say, oof, girl, you need to practice a little bit more, you know. So definitely let me know, and I'd love to see some of the projects you guys are working on. So if you're building a model car like I'm going to be doing pretty soon, post it up. I love learning from you guys. I always do pick up like great little tips and things from you, so definitely post up your work. And if you guys want to see my model 1970 AAR CUDA once I'm done, I'll go ahead and post that up, but I kind of need some help from you guys with that project, and I can't decide what color to paint it, because on the cover the car is yellow with, of course, the AAR stripes going down the side, but I don't know if I want to do it that color. Perhaps I want to do it a different color, like a plum crazy or a really crazy green. What do you guys think? So post in the comments, and I'll definitely take your words under advisement, and heck, I'll even post who suggested the winning color for me, but maybe I'll even put up a poll and you guys can vote. But tomorrow at 2 p.m., that's why I'm running to get this gun done, we're actually going to be posting this completed gun with all the necessary steps, materials, everything. So if you missed the stream, you can always catch it again, just rerun it. Everything's on there on demand, but if you don't want to watch an hour-long stream, you can watch tomorrow's clip show, where we show you all the most important elements of how to do what we did. And you can see that my clamps here are now a nice, oops, I got another boo-boo there, a nice bronze color that actually looks like a natural paint chip. So sometimes mistakes do come in handy. And I think I'm about ready to move off the bronze. One of the things, I normally paint with acrylics, but one of the things I like about this enamel that I'm finding is that it dries kind of slowly. So it allows the colors to kind of blend and meld together. And now that this section is more dry, I can come back over it and hit it up again with more gold. So you see that the edges, they get even brighter. They pop. So if any of you like to have any weekend Bob Ross moments like I'm having, except on a weekday, you know, definitely post up all the cool stuff you've done. Love to see that stuff. It can be automotive, non-automotive, outdoor, man cave stuff. Those things are fun too. All right, and you can see a whole bunch of boo-boos going on here. Bunch of mistakes, but give you guys a closer look here. Look inside this bracket area that I wanted to keep black. It is full of just paint dabbles. So I'm gonna save that for last though, because I might wanna go over that area again, and I will certainly dabble it up again, knowing me. So I think we have just enough bronzing on these clamps, not too much, to keep them more realistic looking. So one of the things I'll attack now is this dial, because boy did I spend a ton of time on it, and it was really difficult getting the file in there. I even took a Dremel to it, but I found that with this plastic, it just melted. It didn't really create super straight lines. So I think I'm pretty happy with the overall bronziness of everything there, and looking pretty weathered. Now this piece here looks different than this piece, so you know that it, you know, performs a different function, and that's kind of the idea there. And so let's move on to the dial. So back to silver, and I'm gonna go ahead and clean out my one brush, which I really should just get a grab bag of like 50 of them before we move on to the rest of the scope and then the muzzle burn that we're going to do. But the technique is really simple. It's just a paper towel and a brush, and I like to use these square brushes because they're really great for rocking up and down the sides of all the edges and giving you those cool edge lines. But you know, other brushes give you effects as well. You can make little crack lines if you have a super steady hand, which I am not in that club. I don't know how many of you guys are in that club. If you are, post down below, because I don't know, maybe I might have you guys over to do some cool crack lines or hairline fractures and stuff on my pieces. I can borrow your hands for a bit. So let me dab this away. And we were just going to, you can see that this side of the clamp is bronze, but I kept this side of the clamp here because it's a bigger piece. Well, I'm keeping that silver because I want to, that's why. So add a little bit of wear to that, and where the two different metals meet up there, and a little bit of happy wear, if you will. Happy little wear. Oh, running from the bounty hunters because I stole their cash. It happens. It's all too tempting. And you can see I'm getting some of these streaks just to kind of wear down our metal. I think that's about it. Now, the way we did with the weathering up here, I'm going to continue that on the scope, because if I flip this around, you can see this raised edge is more prominent. You can see this area here that I carved out with a file really made a big difference when we went ahead and painted this. So let's repeat on this side, because we've reduced the sheen over here, but still the sheen is hanging on for dear life. It's like, no, I want to look brand new, like I just came out of the Rebellion factory. And I was just issued, although I don't think Han Solo takes any issues. I think he just takes whatever gun he wants. So Now we have a raised edge, so I'm just going to take my brush in parallel and just go ahead and accentuate that with the little bit of paint that I have left on here. Again, when the paint is just about to die, it puts in its last fight, giving you some of the best effects that you can grab here. And of course our raised areas. I'm going to turn this way so I can have access. And same thing at the top. And I'm going to leave that boo-boo. I think it looks pretty authentic, like the scope got dropped or something and some paint got chipped off of it. So, little boo-boo there. And again, we have our raised ridge right here. So I'm going to go ahead and take care of that with our last little bit of paint. There we go. Now, finally, is this dial I've been talking about before we move on to some fun muzzle burns, and that's going to be kind of an experiment because I'm not quite sure how to do that. And here I'm just going to take and lightly brush the edges. So all those raised edges of the notches that I cut into here, painstakingly might I add, are going to get highlighted. And just going to highlight, put a little wear on this dial. I'm sure Han Solo has used it quite a bit, so it's seen action. Maybe the nubbins are wearing down, all the little grip. So, like that. So that is ready to turn and adjust our scope, which is fused to the gun anyways, but you know, details. So, we got this all pretty well weathered. I'm gonna hit up these boo-boos, but before I do that, let's try and figure out some kind of gun muzzling effect. So, I like the burn marks where you have the black, of course, because that's where the blast comes out of. But then, like a ring of purple and a ring of blue. You know what I'm talking about when metal gets really hot. It can even turn colors. So let's see if we can maybe mimic this effect on here. So starting with the black, I'm not sure that I want to just dry brush it on. I think what I'll end up doing is mixing a little bit of black in a cup, just with a paintbrush here, and mix it up. I have an idea. Now normally with like an acrylic color, you can just add water to it to thin it out. Well, that's not the case with this. So this is going to be a bit of a on-camera potential is high for fail here. And you see I have this in this cup like that. And I'm going to add just a little bit of thinner, which is this clear one right here. And I'm going to put this aside because that is just looking like it wants to go all over the place. And trust me, it would if it could. All over my gun. And I'm going to mix just a little bit of this thinner. And I'll start with just a little, and then we'll move our way up as we need to. Well, maybe a little more aggressive here with the thinner. All right, so that's looking more kind of like a watercolor consistency, which is what I'm going for, hopefully. We'll see. And then the idea is where these holes are, they're all going to get black. Now I'll just do 3 in a row here just to kind of see. And very quickly, the idea is just rubbing it off and creating some kind of effect. And you can see that looks kind of neat. And the more you rub it off, this experiment might work a little bit. Gives us kind of a weathered effect. Now, just to kind of make it look not so much like a whole bunch of lines. but I do like the movement. So I think I'll repeat on this side and just kind of make the holes a little bit black. And then take my, it just helps that black paint just kind of seep into the holes, creating kind of a 3D effect. And have a couple more rows. I know the excitement, painting little holes. Wow. Edge of your seat. But you see that I'm not being real precise with this. I'm just kind of like, going for it wherever the little happy burn marks want to live. Little happy burn marks. And I let them kind of pick their own homes here, and see if we can fix up some of these that I went over with a bit aggressively. These are more unhappy burn. But we already have some burning here. I think that looks pretty good, pretty realistic. And let's see if maybe we can get a little bit with just thinned paint on the muzzle here. And you can see it creates some cool streaks. Now, I'd rather do this than dry brushing straight on black. That's a little bit too strong of an effect. So if you take a little bit of thinned, you can create some of these striations where the metal has just been, first of all, this thing's probably been dropped on the floor several times. And it's just gotten so hot over so many blasts. All kinds of blasts. Running from bounty hunters, stealing money, stealing ships. Exciting blasts then. Not the boring kind. So, and I also felt that this muzzle was looking a little too crispy, clean silver. I like it to look a little bit used. But you'll notice that in the actual prop, it is like blatant, bright silver. So that is definitely a look that works as well. And you'll see some props online that have that. I'm doing the same here with this, just removing some of the blatantness of the silver. It's talking back to me a little too much, and I don't appreciate it. And I barely have any more thinned black on here. I mean, it's just barely going, and that's where I'm getting my best effects here, as it is fighting me back. And if you recall how I went ahead and dremeled out each of these ridges, because on the toy gun they were very shallow, and when you start putting base coat you lose a lot of the fine detail. So I wanted to accentuate that detail to make sure I got a good bit of it. Now I'm just going to fill up. It's like at a party, you're trying to find your cup. You know, is this one mine? Is this one mine? Trying to remember how much you drank out of it. So, I think I got the right one. So, a little bit of black here, just around the edges. And it's so interesting to see a lot of the props that you see, and you're like, wow, they must have meticulously paint this. And I find that really it's just some of these broad strokes with just a little bit of paint and using the natural edges just to create your wear effects. That's kind of all it takes a lot of the time. Now, I know there's super pro guys out there. I am nowhere near, you know, I'm not a professional prop maker. I do this for fun because I like movies. It's fun to make decor pieces for your house. I like to paint, not portrait painting per se, but model painting. I like to build model cars and model airplanes. So it's fun to do this kind of thing. But along the way, you know, just learning a couple tricks and couple cool tips from you guys, actually. So don't be afraid to post and say, hey, this worked out. I saw you struggle with this, and this is what really worked out for me. I love hearing that stuff, because a lot of times you're right. So I'm just going over this ridge right here, and I am just about out of ink paint. So get this muzzle done here. See if we can add some color to it as well, using our same thinned method. And this this round brush is working pretty well. And yeah, it's a little time consuming. It's just about going over the same edges over and over and over again. So that's looking pretty good as a good stopping point. I'm going to hit this edge of the muzzle up a little bit more. We want more blast coming from it. So I'm going to go ahead and pour some more black there. That'll probably be it for today in terms of the black. So you can retire for the day. Where the rest of us, well, we got a couple more hours to go before we can retire here on our Wednesday. So, right here, go ahead and mix that up. And this one's way more soupy, more liquidy, I guess, than the last one. The last one was more like Campbell's extra chunky soup. This is more like a chicken broth consistency. Food of champions for the rebellion. So I'm going to make sure I really wipe this off because it is, you know, a little more runny. And I'm going to go ahead and hit this again. That's looking pretty good. And now, I lied to you, black color. You're coming back with a vengeance. And let me clean off you again, the favorite square brush. Because the force is strong with this one for sure. Alright, good striations. And you are coming back for the battalion that awaits. So, now that the muzzle is more, it's darker, now I can go in with a darker dry brush. And a lot of this is trial and error, and I figure if I don't like it, I can always just repaint the entire thing silver again and start again. But I won't do that here because I'm going to make it work. Make it work. Maximum effort. So, weather this a little. And once you've thinned out the paint, it's kind of nice because then it takes a little longer to dry, even longer than before. But the nice thing is you can get some really great blends with it. And actually not gonna dry it completely out. Ooh, I got a nice black edge there. Very nice burn going here. Going a little heavier than your typical dry brush. And I think I might finish this on time for tomorrow, guys. Yes. I don't know, it was a little touch and go there for a bit. But once you get into it, it kind of goes pretty quickly. And it's looking pretty good. And now we're going to mix up the light, creating a glare. So I'm just going to go in kind of blind, but that's okay. Because if you don't like it, with the case of the muzzle, paint it back black, paint it back silver. In other cases, paint it black. All right. So that's looking pretty good. Our muzzle is looking nice and toasty, like put out a few good blasts. And the metal is just, I mean, it's just had it. But it's still got a couple more fights in it. That way the gun is not so super silver, like we just got out of like Rebellion school or something. Or maybe that's just for the Empire. I don't think the Rebellion has time to come up with schools and all that. They gotta be moving constantly. The Empire on their tail. So we got some black, and I'm kind of liking that. Perhaps we can try to add some purple and see how that goes. But our gun here is looking pretty complete. A little bit of red action. Little bit of blue action, a little Smurf gonna join the rebellion here, and it's going to like that and make our purple. It's actually pretty nice. Nice purple. I'm gonna add a little bit more red to brighten it up. That's a nice Darth Vader red, because every good guy has a bad side, so we're gonna add some bad side of the Force to this gun with a little red in there, and make sure I get the color off this, because I do that all the time. You just start painting, oh my gosh, why is this color off? So there we go. All right, this is almost done. I'm getting pumped now. Get a little bit of this, and I'm gonna not thin it out quite yet. I can always add a little thinner on top. But when you add that little purple, and then we're gonna add a little blue, kind of creates that coloration of burnt metal. It's seen some action. Plus, it's something that people aren't always expecting, to see the purple and the different colors. Trying to up our painting game here. I always like to try new things. Most of the time it doesn't turn out all that great, but other times you do create, or just accidentally create, a cool effect that you didn't mean to create. And different paints have different characteristics, whether you're painting with water-based or enamel here. And those of you who paint for real, then there's the oil-based colors. So lots of cool different things. Me, I'm not that great, so I just like to kind of stick with the easy stuff. But have fun too. All right, so we have black going into purple, and now for our final, going into blue. And we're gonna put some of this blue right on top of the purple. So I'm running out of room on this plate here, but that'll do. I'm gonna use this brush here that had some of the purple, so the transition maybe won't be so crazy. The transformation was so crazy. There. It's a bit much. I can already tell from that tiny little dab. So let's get it. A little bit of blue. And before I get too far, all I'm doing is just kind of dabbing, and the purple is still kind of wet. And I'm just gonna take this and pull the color through to kind of mix that blue in with the purple. And now that the brush is getting drier, we're getting an even better effect here with this muzzle burn. And there we go. Now I'm just gonna kind of pull some of that silver through to the blue. Actually, it pulls the blue off, revealing the silver underneath, and that's kind of created our bluish muzzle effect. So I think that's it for the muzzle. And see, in just, I would say, what, has it been half hour? I don't even know. time flies. We completely transformed this side of the gun so it's not so shiny, and it matches this side of the gun here. So what do you guys think? Realistic? Post in the comments. I'd love to hear. We got our muzzle flare going on from all that stormtrooper action and stealing money and ships and living a super cool life before meeting Miss Leia, of course. So see the putting together of this gun in all of its glory tomorrow at 2 p.m. Eastern time. And you can see all of the important steps that we took, more techniques, how to prepare the gun, and also post in the comments below. What do you guys think? You see that I hollowed out the scope, both sides of the scope, because I thought it would be cool to put kind of like a piece of plexiglass or something here. But then I thought of an even cooler idea, which is to stick a laser pointer in here. Now, if you look real closely, there are some braces in there that I'm gonna have to Dremel off, but I'm thinking for a future project, maybe like a lasers, you know, since the scope is so close to the gun, that might be kind of cool. So tell me in the comments, yes, no, laser pointer on this thing. And I'll see you guys tomorrow at 2 p.m. for our new show, Nerd Dungeon. Catch you guys later.